Looking into the death of Brian Thompson, CEO of UnitedHealthcare.
Yeah, it's a story that's really shaken a lot of people. What's particularly unsettling, I think, is just how this happened. Not an accident, not an illness or anything like
No.
that, a targeted attack
A shooting
in Manhattan.
in broad daylight.
Yeah.
It's just unbelievable. Everyone's feeling it. Shock, grief, and just this sense of, like, unease. I mean, this is not something you expect to hear about, especially someone like him, at that level.
Right.
To even begin to process this, I think we need to start with who Brian Thompson was.
So Brian Thompson, he became the CEO of UnitedHealthcare back in 2021. And he was really a major force in the larger company, UnitedHealth Group. I mean, this is a huge player in U.S. healthcare. And insurance, I mean, think about it. Pretty much everyone listening has probably interacted with them in some way.
Huge, yeah. And he was in New York for their big investor conference.
Right.
And that's when this happened.
It's a chilling reminder, I think, of how vulnerable we all are, really. I mean, even those at the very top.
Absolutely. So
Right.
early this morning, just before 7 a.m., Midtown Manhattan, the city's just starting to come alive. Streets are busy, and Brian Thompson is on his way to the conference. And that's when a gunman, just waiting for him, opens fire.
Commissioner Tisch, the NYPD commissioner, she said it was deliberate. This wasn't random. This gunman, he waited for Thompson, then he attacked. I mean, that level of planning, it's just chilling.
Witnesses said they heard at least 2 shots, people, scrambling to get to safety.
Yeah.
Thompson was hit in the back and leg. And even though first responders got there quickly, he died shortly after arriving at the hospital, Mount Sinai West.
And what makes this even more disturbing is that the suspect, they said he was masked, armed, and he got away.
Just vanished.
First on foot, then he got on an e-bike, just disappeared into the city.
Like a ghost. And they last saw him, they think, in Central Park. But as of right now, he's still out there. The NYPD is asking anyone with information to please come forward.
As the city's trying to come to grips with this loss, I think the biggest question on everyone's mind is just why? What would lead someone to do something like this?
It's a question that, I think is haunting all of us. And the worst part, there's no answer right now. It's a complete mystery.
The NYPD hasn't said much, about the investigation. But there are a few things that have come out. Thompson's wife, Paulette, she talked to NBC News. She's obviously devastated. I mean, who wouldn't be? But she said something that, it kind of changes things.
She said there had been threats against her husband before this happened.
Yeah.
I mean, it's heartbreaking to think he might have been living with that fear. And it just brings up so many questions, What kind of threats? Were they related to his work? Or was it something else entirely?
Those are the questions they're trying to figure out, yeah. But Paulette, she didn't give any details about the threats. CNN tried to talk to her, but she didn't want to say anything more. And honestly, I can't blame her.
No, of course not. It's hard. It's another reminder that no matter how successful you are, how much power you have, you could still be vulnerable to things you can't even see coming.
Yeah. And those threats, it really does make things more complicated. Was this some random act of violence? Or was it planned? Was there something more to it, something we don't know yet?
It's that lack of clarity that's so difficult, I think, for everyone, his family, his colleagues, for all of us trying to understand what happened.
And even though the investigation is still going on, this loss, it goes way beyond just those who knew Brian Thompson.
Oh, absolutely. UnitedHealth Group, they're in shock. The investor conference, which was supposed to be this big thing for them, is canceled immediately.
Flags at their headquarters in Minnesota, they're at half-staff. Their CEO, Andrew Whitty, he sent out a message to all the employees, and he said Thompson was, and I quote, a truly extraordinary person. And he talked about how everyone's feeling this loss.
Which speaks volumes, I think, about the kind of leader he was. UnitedHealth Group also put out a statement expressing their sorrow and sending condolences to Thompson's family.
And it's not just the corporate world. Political leaders, they've spoken out too, expressing grief, outrage,
Governor Hochul here in New York, she offered her condolences and said the state police will help the NYPD however they can with the investigation. And she stressed how important it is not just to find whoever did this, but to make sure everyone in New York is safe.
Governor Walz from Minnesota, where UnitedHealth Group is based, he said Thompson's death was a terrible loss, not just for the company, but for everyone in healthcare. And that really says something about the impact Thompson had.
Senators, congressmen, they've all put out statements too, offering condolences, saying they want this case solved quickly. And it just underscores how many people have been touched by this. the hole that's left behind for those who knew him, who worked with him.
It's just, this whole thing, it brings up so many questions about security, especially now. You have to wonder, are the measures we have in place, are they really enough to protect people, especially those in high positions, especially now when threats can come out of nowhere, online?
Yeah, it is scary to think about. We always see CEOs and those types with security details, right? But this makes you wonder, how effective are they really? Could something have been missed? How vulnerable are we, all of us, really, even with protection?
This could really change how we think about security across the board. Companies might start doing more preventative stuff, intelligence gathering, being able to respond quickly if something happens.
It's a sad thing to say, but maybe this is what it takes for things to change.
Yeah.
To protect people in those positions.
And this goes beyond just corporations. This happened in broad daylight in Manhattan. It makes you think about how safe our cities really are. I mean, a lot of us, we feel safe in a city like New York, with all the security they have. But this shows us that there are still weaknesses, places where someone can slip through.
And it might mean we all have to be more careful. Not just the police, all of us.
Yeah, there's definitely a sense of fear now, uncertainty, after something like this. But more than that, I think there's just a deep sadness for Brian Thompson, for his family, for everyone who knew him.
This loss is going to be felt for a long time, and it's going to have ripple effects on the corporate world, on healthcare, on all of us, really. I can't even imagine what his family is going through right now. His wife, Paulette, their children, it's an unimaginable loss.
Yeah, it really is. And the fact that it happened like this, it just makes it so much harder. No one should have to go through something like this.
And it's not just them. His colleagues at UnitedHealth Group, they've lost a leader, a mentor, a friend.
Yeah. When you read the things people are saying about him, it's clear he was more than just a CEO. He was a good person, someone people respected and cared about. And that absence, it's going to be felt for a long time.
While the investigation's going on, searching for answers, I think that's got to be the one thing they're holding on to right now.
Hopefully figuring out why this happened, if that's even possible. Maybe it'll bring some closure. Not just for those close to him, but for all of us.
This attack on Brian Thompson, it's left a mark. Not just on healthcare, but on everyone, really. It makes you think about how vulnerable we all are, how fragile life is.
And how unpredictable things can be. It really does.
And as we try to make sense of it all, I think it reminds us of a few things. To be vigilant, to be aware of our surroundings, and to remember that even in the darkest times, kindness and understanding are what matter most.
Absolutely. We can only hope that justice will be served, that whoever did this will be held accountable. And I think the best way to honor Brian Thompson's memory is to try and prevent something like this from happening again.
To create a world where we don't just mourn these tragedies, but where we actively work to stop them.